October 1942, El Alamein, the 66th Mortar Company, Royal Engineers, has just received its new weapons. These mortars look nothing like the lightweight tubes infantry carry. They weigh over 1,300 pounds. They require vehicle transport. They fire bombs twice as heavy as anything a battalion mortar can manage. And tonight, they are about to do something no British unit has ever done before. According to contemporary accounts, this single company will have expended the 4.2-inch high explosive ammunition available in the North African theatre during that action, an extraordinary expenditure that speaks to how desperately commanders wanted this weapon's fire. The mortar that accomplished this feat was designed to deliver poison gas. It never gassed anyone. Instead, it became one of the most devastating fire support weapons the British Army possessed, a weapon that could sustain grinding bombardments for hours, delivering 20-pound bombs at short burst rates that artillery officers found remarkable for a heavy mortar. This is the story of the Ordnance ML 4.2-inch mortar, the chemical weapon that became a hero. The problem facing British planners in 1941 was simple to state and difficult to solve. Infantry battalions had the 3-inch mortar, a fine weapon that could lob a 10-pound bomb roughly 2,800 yards. Divisional artillery had 25-pounders reaching out beyond 11,000 yards, but between these two systems lay a gap, a range band where infantry needed fire support heavier than their battalion weapons could provide, yet closer and faster than divisional guns could deliver. German forces exploited this gap ruthlessly. Their 81mm Granatwerfer 34 fired at 15 to 25 rounds per minute, saturating British positions with 7.7-pound bombs before artillery observers could even call for counterfire. Worse still, the Germans had developed something that terrified Allied soldiers across every theatre, the Nebelwerfer. British troops called it the Moaning Minnie because of the distinctive wailing sound its rockets made in flight. A single Nebelwerfer battery could deliver 36 rockets in 10 seconds. Over 2,500 pounds of high explosive arriving almost simultaneously. The psychological effect was devastating. Men who could endure hours of conventional shelling broke under Nebelwerfer attacks. The screaming approach, the massed explosions, the sheer violence of the salvo, it overwhelmed even veteran formations. What the British needed was not another weapon to match the Nebelwerfer's shock effect. They needed something that could deliver sustained, grinding, relentless fire support, something that could keep German heads down for minutes and hours rather than seconds, something that could turn the defenders' positions into a continuous hell of explosions. The solution came from an unexpected source. The Armaments Research and Development Establishment had been working on a chemical weapons delivery system, a heavy mortar designed to saturate enemy positions with mustard gas. According to design documents cited in Pugh's Fighting Vehicles and Weapons of the Modern British Army, ARDE engineers created a smooth-bore mortar of 4.2 inches caliber, firing thin, stabilized bombs through a barrel 68 inches long. The weapon they produced was massive by mortar standards. The Mark II barrel alone weighed 92 pounds. The mounting added another 112. The mobile baseplate, an ingenious trailer design whose wheels could be unlocked and raised for firing, weighed 602 pounds. Total system weight approached 1,320 pounds, more than 10 times heavier than the 3-inch mortar it was meant to complement. This weight brought capability. The 4.2-inch mortar fired a 20-pound high explosive bomb at 730 feet per second, reaching out to 4,100 yards with the standard charge. According to Chamberlain and Gander's mortars and rockets, the weapon could sustain 10 rounds per minute continuously, increase to 15 rounds per minute for 3-minute bursts, and peak at 20 rounds per minute for 1-minute intense fire missions. The mathematics made artillery officers take notice. At 15 rounds per minute, the 4.2-inch mortar was putting 300 pounds of ordnance downrange every 60 seconds. A 4-mortar platoon could deliver 1,200 pounds per minute. A 16-mortar company could sustain nearly 5,000 pounds of high explosive per minute onto a target area, all arriving at near vertical angles that maximised blast effect against troops in trenches and foxholes. The mobile baseplate deserves particular attention because it represented genuine engineering innovation. Unlike conventional mortar baseplates that simply absorbed recoil into the ground, the British design incorporated an integrated trailer with suspension arms and wheels that could be unlocked and swung up for firing. This dramatically improved mobility and reduced the time needed to bring the weapon into action compared to separated components. A Lloyd carrier towed the complete assembly, and crews could be firing within minutes of arrival. The weapon offered elevation from 45 to 80 degrees and 10 degrees of traverse, allowing rapid adjustment without repositioning the baseplate. Ammunition came in multiple configurations. The standard high explosive bomb weighed 20 pounds. Smoke bombs ran slightly heavier at 22 pounds. During the war, British industry produced both streamlined and cylindrical bomb bodies. Production pressures in 1941 and 42 forced manufacturers to use cast bomb bodies rather than the intended forged types, reducing range and consistency. This explains the variable range figures across sources, anywhere from 3,300 to 4,400 yards depending on bomb type and charge. 2 propellant charges were available, allowing crews to adjust trajectory for different tactical situations. Charge 2 provided maximum range. Charge 1 gave a higher, slower trajectory ideal for engaging targets in defilade or behind obstacles where near vertical impact was essential. Royal Ordnance factories began production in late 1941. By war's end, approximately 3,800 had been built. The mortar entered service with Royal Engineer Chemical Warfare Companies, complete with Mark I chemical bombs filled with mustard gas, designated HS or HT fillings. These units trained to deliver poison gas attacks. They never did. Gas warfare remained a threat that never materialized. By mid-1943, the War Office concluded that chemical attacks were unlikely and disbanded the RE chemical warfare companies as an emergency expedient. The mortars were too valuable to waste. They passed to infantry divisions, assigned to machine gun battalions as heavy mortar companies. Each division received 16 mortars, organized into 4 platoons of 4, providing organic heavy fire support that infantry commanders could call upon directly without waiting for divisional artillery allocation. The transition was not smooth. New Zealand's official war history delivers a damning verdict on the War Office's handling of the weapon. The historians wrote that the War Office had been strangely remiss about the way it had these weapons produced and issued, without serious thought about who should use them or how they should be used. Infantry battalions, chronically short of manpower and especially officers, lacked the training and communications equipment to employ the mortars effectively. Fire control procedures that artillerymen learned as basics were unknown to infantry officers suddenly responsible for heavy indirect fire weapons. The New Zealand solution proved characteristic of Commonwealth pragmatism. The 7th Anti-Tank Regiment formed 39th Mortar Battery in April 1944, putting the heavy mortars in the hands of artillerymen who understood fire control. 2nd Lieutenant R.R. Menendez prepared the first proper range table for the weapon, something the War Office had apparently never done. These gunners would fight the mortars as artillery, not as oversized infantry weapons. Similar improvisations occurred throughout the British Army. At Casino, S Troop of 307th Battery, 99th Light Anti-Aircraft Regiment manned 4.2-inch mortars, anti-aircraft gunners repurposed because heavy mortar crews were unavailable. In Borneo, decades later, air defense battery personnel would man the same weapon. The 4.2-inch mortar became the weapon that formations kept reaching for when they needed heavy fire support fast. El Alamein proved the concept. The 66th Mortar Company supported the Australian 24th Infantry Brigade's advance, providing intense fire on the brigade's exposed right flank. The crews fired continuously, burning through ammunition at rates that shocked supply officers. Contemporary accounts credit the company with using up the 4.2-inch HE stocks available in the North African theatre during that action. An extraordinary expenditure. This was not poor logistics. This was a weapon system proving its worth so dramatically that commanders kept demanding more fire. Now, if you are finding this interesting, a like on this video genuinely helps more than you would think. The algorithm notices. Now, back to the mortar's combat record. Italy provided continuous validation. At Anzio, Imperial War Museum photographs show 1st Infantry Brigade Support Group firing in support of the 5th Northamptonshire Regiment during the May 1944 breakout. The weapon's high-angle trajectory made it lethal against fortified mountain positions, delivering bombs at near vertical descent into German foxholes and trenches. A bomb falling straight down maximizes blast effect against dug-in troops. The 4.2-inch mortar's plunging fire turned German field fortifications into death traps. The 4th Battle of Casino in May 1944 saw massed 4.2-inch fire integrated into corps-level fire plans. Operation Diadem brought every available gun and mortar to bear on the German Gustav Line defences. The mortars fired alongside medium and heavy artillery in coordinated programs that left German defenders unable to move, unable to reinforce, unable to do anything except endure the continuous rain of explosions. Normandy and northwest Europe continued the pattern. During Operation Jupiter in July 1944, the recapture of Hill 112, 4.2-inch mortars were incorporated into Army Group Royal Artillery fire plans for counter-battery and counter-mortar tasks. The 2nd Kensingtons of the 49th West Riding Division operated their mortars from the beaches through to Arnhem. An Imperial War Museum sound recording captures British 4.2-inch mortars firing near Boxtel, Netherlands on October 23, 1944. The weapon proved particularly effective in the close country of Normandy's bocage. German defenders used the thick hedgerows to create interlocking defensive positions that artillery struggled to neutralize. The high-angle mortar fire dropped bombs directly into these positions, bypassing the natural cover that protected against flat trajectory weapons. Infantry advancing through the bocage learned to call for 4.2-inch support when they identified strongpoints, trusting the near-vertical bomb descent to reach defenders that artillery could not touch. Counter-mortar work became an important secondary mission. German mortar teams caused constant casualties among advancing British units. The 4.2-inch mortar could respond faster than divisional artillery, saturating suspected German mortar positions within minutes of being called. Sound-ranging equipment helped locate German weapons by the distinctive thump of their firing. Once located, a concentration of 20-pound bombs often silenced them permanently. One veteran claimed that a trained crew could put 23 bombs in the air before the first one impacted. At maximum charge and high elevation, the bomb's flight time exceeded 1 minute. A crew loading at 20-plus rounds per minute could theoretically achieve this effect, a devastating rain of 20-pound bombs arriving almost simultaneously. Whether precisely accurate or not, the anecdote speaks to the weapon's sustained fire capability, its ability to keep bombs falling on target for as long as ammunition lasted. Korea brought the weapon's finest hour. At the Battle of the Imjin River in April 1951, C Troop of the 170th Independent Mortar Battery, Royal Artillery, fought alongside the 1st Battalion Gloucestershire Regiment. The Gloucesters made their legendary last stand against overwhelming Chinese forces, and the mortarmen fought beside them. The battle unfolded over 3 days of desperate fighting. Chinese forces attacked in overwhelming numbers, wave after wave of infantry pressing against British positions. The mortar crews kept firing, adjusting their aim as the perimeter shrank, dropping bombs ever closer to their own positions as the Chinese advanced. When ammunition ran low, they called for resupply. When resupply could not reach them, they rationed their remaining rounds for maximum effect. C Troop received the United States Presidential Unit Citation, an exceptionally rare honour for a British unit, for exceptionally outstanding performance of duty and extraordinary heroism near Sault Marie. The citation recognised mortar crews who kept firing in support of surrounded infantry, who refused to abandon their weapons even as Chinese forces closed around their positions. The 4.2-inch mortar had proved itself in the deserts of Africa, the mountains of Italy, the hedgerows of Normandy. At the Imjin, it earned recognition from an allied nation for extraordinary valour. Comparing the British 4.2-inch to its counterparts reveals the engineering philosophy behind the design. The American M2 4.2-inch mortar shared the same calibre but little else. The Americans rifled their barrel, creating spin-stabilised shells that achieved slightly greater accuracy and packed 8 pounds of explosive, roughly comparable in blast effect to medium artillery shells. The American weapon weighed just 333 pounds, a fraction of the British system's 1,300. This weight difference reflected different tactical concepts. American chemical mortar battalions deployed 48 mortars each, using lightweight as a force multiplier. British divisions had 16 mortars per heavy mortar company, using the mobile baseplate's sophistication to improve mobility and reduce emplacement time. The American approach scattered many light weapons across the battlefield. The British concentrated fewer heavy weapons for maximum effect per round. Against the German 8cm Granatwerfer 34, the standard Wehrmacht infantry mortar, the 4.2-inch delivered decisive overmatch. The German weapon fired its 7.7-pound bomb at 15 to 25 rounds per minute. The British mortar fired its 20-pound bomb at 10 to 15 rounds per minute sustained. In weight of ordnance per minute, the 4.2-inch delivered 200 to 300 pounds, versus the German weapon's 115 to 193 pounds. The Nebelwerfer remained a different beast entirely. The 15cm Nebelwerfer 41 achieved 6,900 metres range, nearly double the 4.2-inch mortar's reach. Counter-battery fire against Nebelwerfer positions was primarily accomplished by conventional artillery, directed by sound-ranging, flash-spotting and counter-mortar radar. The 4.2-inch could theoretically engage Nebelwerfer positions brought close to the front, but this was not its designed role. Where the Nebelwerfer delivered terrifying but brief salvos, the 4.2-inch delivered grinding, sustained, relentless bombardment that kept defenders pinned for hours. The 4.2-inch mortar served beyond the Second World War, beyond Korea, into conflicts its designers never imagined. British forces deployed the weapon to Kuwait in 1961, during the crisis following Iraqi threats to the newly independent emirate. Air Defence Battery personnel manned the mortars during the Borneo confrontation in 1965. The weapon finally retired from British service around 1966. A quarter century after its introduction. Other nations extended its service life further. Australia, Canada, India, New Zealand, Malaysia, Nepal, Greece, Turkey, Ethiopia, and Sri Lanka all operated the weapon. In one particularly improvised application, reserve stocks of 4.2-inch mortar bombs were dropped from Sri Lanka Air Force helicopters as improvised munitions during the early stages of the Sri Lankan Civil War. Mortar bombs designed to fall down a tube, instead dropped from aircraft, decades after their manufacture, still deadly enough to be worth the improvisation. The weapon's legacy lies not in a catchy nickname, but in what it represented, the British answer to the problem of heavy fire support between battalion mortars and divisional artillery. Where the moaning Minnie screamed and terrified and fell silent, the 4.2-inch mortar thumped and crashed and kept on firing. It was not glamorous. It was not terrifying. It was relentless, methodical, crushing and effective. The institutional journey of this weapon tells its own story. Born as a Royal Engineer chemical weapon, transferred to infantry machine gun battalions, finally adopted by the Royal Artillery, the 4.2-inch mortar moved between services more than most weapons of its era. This unusual institutional path meant no single regiment strongly claimed it. No deep tradition grew around it. No songs were sung about it. Yet every formation that used it demanded more of them. More ammunition, more missions, more fire support from the heavy tubes that could reach where battalion mortars could not, and respond faster than divisional artillery. 3,800 were built. They served from Alamein to Korea to Borneo, across 3 continents and 3 decades, proving that British engineers understood something fundamental about sustained fire support. Sometimes victory goes not to the weapon that screams the loudest, but to the one that keeps firing longest. The 4.2-inch mortar kept firing until there was nothing left to shoot, and then its crews asked for more ammunition and kept firing again. That is not glamour. That is not terror. That is effectiveness, pure and sustained. That is what British engineering built. That is what British soldiers carried into battle. That is the weapon whose crews expended a theatre's worth of ammunition in a single engagement because commanders kept demanding more fire. The chemical weapon that never delivered